Pick a film, any film, and answer me this. Does it have more than one female character? Do these two characters speak to each other at any point? And do they speak about anything other than a man? If the answer is yes to all three, then congratulations, your film is Bechdel approved, or moreover it passes what is known as the Bechdel Test. The Bechdel Test was first conceived by Alison Bechdel way back in 1985. The aim? To highlight the extraordinary gender bias within Hollywood cinema. The test requires a film to have two named women speak to each other about something that isn't a guy. Seems pretty simple, but nearly half of last year's films failed. In fact, only 15% of film protagonists were female in 2013, and women made up a grand total of 30% of all speaking characters. That's about 2.5 men for every 1 woman. And this wasn't unique for 2013. In fact, the representation of men and women in film has not changed since at least 1977. Now, as I've said, Bechdel first made this point back in 1985, but I'm wary of saying that she created the test too literally, as she never really intended these criteria to become the seal of approval that they are today. See, Bechdel is not a film critic, but actually a cartoonist who created the comic strip series Dykes to Watch Out For. The 3 questions first appeared in one of Bechdel's comics named The Rule, to set up the disappointing but quite well recognised punchline that cinema sees women as objects and not subjects. And this isn't a new idea. Bechdel mentions that the concept came from a good friend Liz Wallace, and notes that she's pretty sure that Wallace took the general sentiment from Virginia Woolf, so really the thought goes back to about 1926. So whilst Bechdel did create the questions, fundamentally the questions were not the actual point. See, I really emphasise this because there are a lot of people who don't see it this way. Most recently, the test has caused the internet to rise up in protest against Stephen Moffat, Doctor Who's current head writer, because only 57% of his episodes passed the Bechdel test. Critics claim that this shows that Moffat is indeed more sexist than his predecessor Russell T Davies, whose episodes passed the test 89% of the time. This just shows how prescriptive the test has become in the way we talk about film and television as being either feminist or sexist with no middle ground. In fact, a chain of cinemas in Sweden thinks so highly of these 3 questions that they've actually begun to include a Bechdel seal of approval on the posters of any movie they're showing in their cinema. Now, there are benefits to this way of thinking. A number of industry studies have found that films that pass the test make more money. A lot more money. Of the top 50 films last year, 24 passed, and between them they made $4.22 billion in the US box office. The remaining films only made $2.66 billion overall. That's a pretty significant difference. But this makes sense. If a film fulfills these criteria, the likelihood is that it treats women as equal in more ways than these. If 2 women speak about something that isn't a man, it's probable that these women are talking about something that actually advances the plot, making them more important to the story by default. Given that just over half of moviegoers are female, it makes sense that these films become more appealing to a female audience. But the crucial thing is, these are most definitely not the only ways a film can give equal development to both its female and male characters. You need only look at Gravity, winner of 7 Academy Awards this year, which fails the test because Sandra Bullock's character doesn't speak to another woman. But there are only 3 named characters in that entire film, and only 2, a man and a woman, are actually significant to the story. So whilst there's no dialogue between 2 women, it would be foolish to suggest that Sandra Bullock's character is weak or undervalued due to the film's failure of the Bechdel test. The Bechdel test does provide a useful litmus test for gender inequality in film, but it's not the be-all and end-all of this conversation. Equality cannot be measured using simply 3 questions. When evaluating female characters, we need to ask, are they as well-rounded as men? Do they have stories and feelings and development? Do they represent the diversity we see in the world every single day? If the answer is yes, then we've made it. And here I refer you to the idea that films both reflect and set the standards of gender inequality in our culture. Our behaviour is influenced, however slightly, by what we see on the screen in front of us. So do we really want to preach that 3 simple hurdles are all we need to set the world of cinema right? This quick-fix approach seems almost damaging to the progress of feminist ideals in the industry, giving producers, writers, directors an easy way out, a way to avoid the actual issue, which is the exact opposite of what Bechdel wanted, and somewhat laughs in the face of her point that even if a film can satisfy these criteria, its women will still be limited. So should we pin our hopes and dreams of an equal tomorrow on the Bechdel test? I'm gonna go with no. Ultimately, it's clear that the Bechdel criteria are not infallible. I mean, they were never meant to be. That was kind of Bechdel's point. But this means there's a real danger of taking these criteria out of context and using them to prescribe our reaction to film before most of us have even watched them. This pass-fail system may cause progressive films with real female characters to be panned just because these female characters never meet. So, I challenge you to go watch a film. And instead of waiting for a singular moment within which all feminist dreams come to light, answer me this. How similar is that female character to women that you know in real life? Do they have more character range than just slutty, nurturing and scared? Do they care about things that matter? Are they well-rounded? And if you do this, and if everyone does this, then it might just give Hollywood the push that they need to make strong female characters the norm. And then maybe, one day, you'll walk into a cinema at any time of year to watch a film about a woman who saves the world. Maybe.